What's up, War Room? Welcome back. The show does not stop, even when CR is on his honeymoon. We have pulled in Paul, co-host of The Other Guys, leader of BadlandsTOJ.com, not just to promote the merch we're selling or the golf outing that we're putting together, but to answer the wave of Discord questions we got from you. We're going to record this one, then we're going to jump into the pod, which is going to include our pre-Memorial Day weekend predictions for the Jets. Far too early, but the Knicks are sadly now eliminated, so we're going to just give some early predictions for the Jets. Paul, how you doing? How you feeling? Hat's looking good. That's a one of one, a limited edition you got there from when we were in the testing phase of pulling it together of our now sold out hat.
Yeah, actually, I like wearing this one. The hat doesn't look great on my head, but I like wearing it because only one exists on the planet. So, I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Happy to pinch hit for Connor for the week. And, we got Memorial Day coming up. Summer's almost here. So, looking forward to getting started.
So I put out the bat signal for Discord questions, and the people did not fail. They never fail. You very smartly and proactively organized them in a logical order for us to rip through here the next 20 or 25 minutes or so. So let's dive into it and answer these damn questions here.
Yeah, so we got a bunch about the coaching staff. I think everybody's feeling deservedly skeptical about the coaching staff. So we're going to get all those out of the way first. I'm going to lead off with kind of the most whoppery one of them all. From Shogun J88. Despite all the optimism, I'm still kind of down on this team for one major reason, the offensive staff. Sure, maybe Rodgers can spread his magical pixie dust and make everything work, but he's 41, coming off a major lower body injury, the worst turf in the NFL behind an offensive line who might play or practice 3 series together in total before week 1 with a bottom 3 offensive staff. Just seems like a fool's errand to expect this team to win double-digit games when there's so many variables on the offensive side of the ball in a league where offense is basically legislated into the rules. Am I being too negative?
I think these are fair concerns. And I think all of us, the vibes are high right now, right? They had a fun offseason. They added a lot of talent. Rodgers is back and healthy. It's an interesting schedule, if not an exciting schedule. There's some challenges to it, but you look at those first 5 and you're like, I think they could be like 4-1. Like, why not? But these are all fair concerns because it really comes down to how much can Rodgers at this phase of his career paper over. If he's the guy he was 2-3 years ago, he can. If he's 60% of that, he might not be able to. And look, there's going to be certain times that the Jets can't dial up the right play in the red zone or Rodgers can't fix something. And we're going to be like, oh, that's right. We have Nate Hackett, Keith Carter, Todd Downing, and that's a problem that could be hard to overcome. I'm a little less worried about the offensive line now that they have Fashanu and they have some like very legitimate depth at the tackle position. I think Schweitzer's fine as a top interior backup. I think Carter Warren has your second backup tackle. He's probably slightly overqualified for that. So they have better depth than they've had in recent years. So I'm not quite as panicked as that. I'm expecting the 12 to 13 games from Tyron Smith. And if they get that and a few other things to break their way, it will be an above average offensive line with the other work that they've done with Morgan Moses and getting rid of Laken Tomlinson. These are fair concerns and variables. So you don't really have that for the defense, especially with some of the quarterbacks they're going to face early in the schedule. You kind of know what you're going to get there. You know they'll be good enough on special teams. I like to fall back on as a comfort that they have Aaron Rodgers, they have Breece Hall, they have Garrett Wilson. They'll have, at least by the middle of the year, like the normal version of Mike Williams. There's a lot of high-end playmaking talent here that a lot of weeks will just be able to overcome limitations on the coaching staff because their guys are just going to be better. And sometimes football is not that complicated. It's just throwing the ball up and your receiver is better than the cornerback, or your quarterback is smarter than the middle linebacker on the other team and manipulates something. And for 65% of the teams in the league, the Jets are going to be able to do things like that. And that might be enough with their defense being potentially as good as it is. So these are fair call-outs. And this is not like a cakewalk, like 11, 12 win team. This could very well be an 8 or 9 win team because of everything they said. He just said. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think expectation is an interesting way to word that because as Jets fans, like I always refer to it as like this abused dog syndrome that we have where like we're always kind of expecting the worst. So I don't know if I'm sitting here saying I expect to win double-digit games, but I see it all there. Like it is all out in front of us. There is a ton of risk there. As far as the offensive coaching staff goes, for whatever reason, Hackett, in the years that he's been with Rodgers, seems to be okay. I don't know if that's Rodgers completely papering over it, like you say, or if it's just that they work really well together. There are plenty of examples of good quarterbacks being able to elevate traditionally bad offensive coordinators. So maybe they just have something special in the working relationship there. I think all in all, like you said, they're fair call outs. There is a lot of risk associated with the team. But at the end of the day, as a fan, I don't want to sit here and be worrying about what if the whole time. It's a lot more fun to just kind of roll into it and be like, look at all this talent we got. Look at all these dudes that we have on offense. The skill positions are there. Like, let's roll with it and see what happens.
Yeah, especially at this time of the year. Like we have, it's early. We got a few months until everything really gets rolling. So it's an okay time for the good vibes.
And so much can happen, right? There's risk on every team, right? And you never know how it's going to play out until the season gets going. So we'll see.
We'll see.
All right. Next one we got up is Jay Berardelli, 21.
Yep.
Keeping with the coaching staff, what do we need to see this year from Saleh, Martini Nate, Carter, Downing to instill our trust back in the coaching staff besides the obvious return of Rodgers and everything he brings?
I mean, from Saleh, I want to see him get a little better with the press. I want to see his game management continue to improve. Be aggressive in a way that makes sense with the quarterback that you have now. There should be no signs of conservative play calling, decision making. Zach Wilson's not the quarterback anymore. So coach in that way, coach like you have Aaron Rodgers. Again, it feels like he shoots himself in the foot with the media like 2 or 3 times a year. Like if we could avoid that, like that'd be cool. Just like, why not? Let's not have any sideshows. And I mean, that's really it for him. I think he'll have the defense ready to go. And if they win, he'll be here. And if they don't win, he's the first guy off the boat. Well, after they get, Hackett off the boat. The best thing they can do on offense is stay out of Rodgers' way. Streamline the situation on the sideline. I think last year it was like 7 different people talking to each other and conferring before a play was called. Like, just streamline it. Again, if it's just Rodgers into Hackett and Rodgers has an override, like just dial it back and keep it simple. I don't want to see this team calling or snapping the ball with 1 second left on the play clock every single rep. Like get to the line, play with some tempo, look like you practiced all week. Don't come out and get like buzzsawed 27-3 week 1 and look like you didn't practice all summer. If they could avoid things like that, I think, okay. Like, do they have enough talent where if they have a C+ coaching staff, they can make some noise in the AFC if some things go their way? Probably. Do they have enough talent if they have a D- coaching staff? No. Nobody could really overcome that. And eventually you're going to run into guys who are too smart who are going to take advantage of you. So that's kind of where my head's at with it. I'm wary too. I mean, Saleh's not, and I'm more pro Saleh than most people. I feel like he's just objectively not been a good head coach to date. He just hasn't. There's no metric that would say that he has been. The most positive thing you could say for him is that he's very good at finding and developing defensive talent. Quincy Williams, Bryce Huff. There's plenty of other examples, even like what he's been able to get of top end talent like Sauce so far. But from a pure head coach perspective, he's in bad historical territory record wise. It's very rare for someone to start his career the way he did and then turn it around and become a great coach. I don't know if he ever needs to be a great coach if everything else breaks right, but could he be an okay coach? Let's see.
Yeah, so I'm going to separate this out into 2 groups, right? There's Saleh, and then there's Hackett, Carter, and Downing. And I think even in a world where Saleh ends up earning a long-term extension here, like, I don't think Hackett, Carter, and Downing are necessarily long for the Jets organization. Like, this is very much a short-term, like, bring these guys in and see what we can get out of this group of players that we have kind of thing. And if Saleh does end up establishing some winning here and gets to stay here long-term, I think probably once Rodgers is gone, this offensive staff is completely rebuilt again and gutted out and overhauled. So I do want to kind of separate those two, but I'll just keep it simple. I think, there's going to come a time at some point during the season when either it's due to health, where Rodgers is not playing and Tyrod Taylor's in there, or maybe it's just one of those days where Rodgers doesn't have it. There's going to come a time when Rodgers isn't going to win you a game. And what does the coaching staff do in that situation? What's the adjustment that's made? Does the game plan change midstream during the game in order to take advantage of something you see on the opposing team's defense to get us to the finish line and just get in the win column and move on to the next week, right? That happens to every NFL team. The good head coaches are able to adjust on the fly when their star players aren't performing well. And I just want to see, like, if the coaching staff can, on their own, get 1 or 2 wins, that'll say a whole lot for me.
Yep.
So moving on to Isles Jets 88 to win the whole effing thing. Where would this offense and defense need to be statistically throughout the year? Offense top 10, 15, defense top 3. And can the current roster and coaching staff get there, or would it require strategic additions?
I think generally if you have a top 8 offense with a top 8 defense, like you're in the mix. Like you're going to be right there. It's like that top 8 to 10 range. Like can you balance it out in that way? If it's going to be tilted very heavily, they can't have any worse than like a top 14 offense. Like there are 14 playoff teams. You have to be in the top 14 offensively. And if you're at 14, 13, you better have a top 2 or 3 defense. So it's got to kind of balance in that way where like the added number like evens out. I would like to see some balance, like be number 8 on offense and number 6 on defense and be good on specials. And if you could do that, they'll be good enough to be in the mix from a playoff perspective where all you do is get in the tournament. You hope you get the right matchup. You hope, something breaks your way and then you gave yourself a chance. That's all you can ask for. So at a minimum, that offense has to be in the top 14. I don't doubt the defense will be top 10. It's just how high can they go? And that depends on health and a couple other variables. With their schedule, I think they can and should be like a top 3 to 5 defense. So those are the numbers that kind of click in my head. But if you're going to be in the low 20s on offense, like you're not like a serious contender in any meaningful way. And that happens only if Rodgers misses a lot of time. I think they need one more headline addition to really have a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's probably something like trading for Davante Adams in the early part of the season. If they actually start 4-1 and the Raiders bottom out, and there's still some question marks at receiver, because things will happen on offense. Like Garrett Wilson could miss 2 games, or Mike Williams' recovery might be slower, or Corley could have a hard time adjusting. Like they need one more playmaker because they're like okay at tight end. And once you get past Garrett Wilson at receiver, there's a lot of question marks. So that's what I'd go back to. I don't think it's an offensive lineman. I think they have enough there. Safeties, I think they could live with their current safety group. I'd like for it to be better, but that's not going to be the reason they don't win a Super Bowl. Them rolling out in certain weeks potentially with like Garrett Wilson, Corley, and Lazard as their starting 3 receivers with Conklin at tight end, that's not going to be good enough to win the AFC Championship game on the road. So I think they purposely have ammo to go get a guy like Davante Adams. And maybe it's not him. I'm using him as sort of like the stand-in. There could be another name veteran receiver. It could be Brandon Ayuk. Could be 5 other guys who get unhappy and look to be traded. But they're one piece away, I think, from really getting over that hump. And what the hardest thing is that they're in the conference with Mahomes and Reed, and that's the current dynasty. And the Chiefs could look like crap all year. The Chiefs got the shit kicked out of them on Christmas by a mediocre Raiders team. Didn't matter. They put it together and they won a Super Bowl with freaking Mecole Hardman catching the game-winning touchdown because they have the best quarterback and the best coach in football. And that's a really hard thing to overcome. So that's generally where I stand with that.
Yeah, so I just want to see, like, I don't want to see a canyon in between the offensive and defensive ranking. I'm tired of that. It's been going on for 12 plus years where the offense is 29th and the defense is 4th, right? So I just want to shrink that gap a little bit. Ideally, they're within 10 of each other at the most, and ideally that's in the top half. I don't know if I could put exact numbers on where they need to be, but I'd be really happy if that chasm went away, at least just for a year. As far as can they win everything, I'm a big believer in you just have to get into the tournament and get hot at the right time. There are plenty of examples across all 4 major sports of teams that weren't necessarily the best team in any given league that year, but they got hot at the right time. And, like Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, right? And that was a really, really good defense. And it doesn't happen all the time, but once in a while, there are teams that can just get hot at the right time and squirt through the tournament when they need to. And so all you got to do is get there. To your point, I do think that there's an addition made at some point. I don't necessarily think it's a mega star because I don't really feel like that is Joe Douglas's MO. I think it's more to the point of like a strategic addition, like what element are we missing in the offensive game right now, whether that's due to injury or just due to a hole on the roster that already exists today. And I think something will happen because, like you said, the ammo's there. So let's see what it is.
We are fired up to have released our biggest best ball draft yet. $25 entry, 12 players, best way to get ready for Best Ball Mania, which is now live and has like a $1.5 million prize. So you should participate in that, which is $25, but you should practice by participating in the Badlands version. Now, I'm in it. Connor's in it. Few spots are already filled up. We'll link it in the description of the episode. Sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Badlands. Get your deposit match. It's the season now. You know where everyone was drafted. Get in there. Get the reps pre-best ball. Get ready for some of the higher lowers we'll be doing this season that will also certainly involve rookies. CR, are you ready to compete again? We've gotten some smaller tournaments out. We mixed in some baseball, but now it's time for our biggest NFL tournament yet.
Yeah, it's time to run with the big dogs. This is what it's all about. All the rookies got their landing spots. Everybody's ready for fantasy football again. And no better way to do it than a best ball format. I can't wait to get everybody in this league and get it rolling.
That's sign up with Underdog using Badlands deposit match.
Moving on from Chris Rabby. Should Jets fans feel comfortable giving JD and Bob 3+ year extensions if this year plans out how it's supposed to be?
It depends what that definition is. Is that making the AFC Championship game? Is that making the Super Bowl? Is it just making the playoffs? If they just squeak in, I'm not in a rush to give anyone 3-year extensions. Now, I know extensions and contracts can be torn up, whatever, in the NFL, so a lot of that is just performative numbers. I think my read on the situation from my understanding of everything and is that if the Jets go 9-8 next year and lose in the wild card round, what I think is likely to happen is they will give Douglas a 3-year extension and probably fire Saleh. He is closer to being out the door. Now, if they win a playoff game, they win the division, they make some noise, I think both of them will be back. They won't sort of flow in that direction. But if they have a disappointing season, but not a disastrous season, I can absolutely see them just keeping Douglas, but clearing out the coaching staff in some shape or form, because Douglas is just on firmer footing in the building than Saleh is. I think that's generally fair, but not by the margin that everyone says. I still sort of stand by what I've been saying for a while, that to date, Douglas has been a C+ and fans treat him like an A, and Saleh's been a C- and fans treat him like an F. Now you can say after this offseason, maybe Douglas is more like a B-, not a C+, because of what he was able to maneuver. And that's fair probably. And that's why he'll get a little more rope, but I'm not in a rush, especially if Saleh goes 9-8, why am I giving him a 3-year extension? Douglas, kind of the same deal. Now, look, you win a division, you win a home playoff game, you lose of the last play of the game to the Chiefs in the playoffs, that's a different sort of thing where the Jets will probably move very quickly to secure those guys. Also, how ownership is will factor into this. If the election goes a certain way and Woody is back out of pocket, which is highly likely to happen if the election goes that way, an interim owner is much more likely to lean towards stability versus going to hire new people, especially when the last person he hired was Adam Gase. So that's another factor to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, wow, you just hit a home run at the end there.
Yeah.
No, I think what I would love from a fan's perspective is I just want it to be clear in one direction or the other. That 9-8 zone that you're talking about, that is the worst possible place we could be. I want it to be convincing that all these guys need to go, or I want it to be so strong that it's how can you not give them a contract extension? I'm tired of living in that middle zone of making excuses, whether it be injury-based or environmentally based, whatever it is, right? I'm tired of hearing about the turf. I'm tired of hearing about who we didn't have. I want you to show me that you are a competent staff, or make it very clear that you're not, so we can go in a different direction at that point. So from a fan standpoint, that's really all I want to see. I want to know what's next, and I want to commit to it.
There's nothing worse than that purgatory, as we know.
Yeah, exactly. So Cooler Than Cold asks, early thoughts on Week 1 Niners matchup and the storylines.
Look, I think it's their hardest game on paper. So in some ways, getting it out of the way Week 1, it's not the worst thing in the world. Sometimes you catch teams sleeping Week 1. Week 1 can be weird. Things happen every year in Week 1 that don't ultimately end up making sense. I don't love the storylines. Every Jet fan is going to be nervous as hell going into that game. They're going to be re-showing the injury, the Leonard Floyd stuff, him back on Monday night. Once he gets past that fourth play, knock on wood, everyone will be but then you're still going to be panicked the rest of the game. And it's a hard matchup, man. Yeah, Shanahan's got the whole summer to get ready for you. Like, this team was just in the Super Bowl and was like this close to winning it, whereas the Jets like kind of stunk last year, especially down the stretch. So it's a coaching mismatch to the nth degree, and they know everything there is to know